Welcome to Travel Again Insights, our weekly look at the critical news stories that matter most to our amazing industry. So, Ed, where do we start?
Today, Mike, we're going to start with an article from the New York Times, and in particular focused on the vaccine rollout and where are you in line?
Yeah, very interesting, right? Because even though certainly we're all thrilled with the development of vaccines, the rapid approvals and the attempts to really take the vaccines and start to roll it out. CDC came out with recommendations about who goes first, and even that as that's debated and as we work through that process, the good news is that has an impact overall that we're all looking for. And clearly getting those vaccines to frontline workers and to those at high risk are, of utmost importance to our overall society and to, take care of the people that clearly need it the most. The challenge for the travel industry is that, of course, that means that, healthy business travelers, leisure travelers are going to be pretty far down, if not last in line, in terms of receiving a vaccine. So we really have to look at this differently. It's, again, good news overall, hopeful news for sure. But for the travel industry, it means we've got a long road here where we have to act as if the vaccine really is not going to be there to help us for the immediate term. And I think that's the big takeaway here. So the things we're working on as an industry and we're talking about as Travel Again are going to be so critical that we, again, stay the course and really focus on, working on all this together as an industry.
Yeah, I mean, I went and took the test on the New York Times, and I'm second to last, as I should be. But it just means, as you said, business travelers will be later in the process. And so we need to prepare, in that way. Yeah. So next we're going to talk about is around testing, and we feel very strongly about testing at Travel Again. So let's talk about the American Airlines expansion of domestic focused testing.
Yeah, that's great news. And that's where you want to see, clearly the key companies, whether it's airline, hotel, ground, and all the sectors, right? Companies taking leadership role, thinking about the process of how they can enable travelers, improve traveler confidence, anything to help people who do need to travel have a healthy experience, right? And making that testing available, and helping and working with companies to do so is great. It's what we want to see and see, not just there though, and not just by one company or one airline. We want to see this, across the entire industry and globally, right? These are times when we need to pull together and really look at how do we take these ideas and make them again systematically try to make it that available to anyone across the entire industry. But again, hats off to American. These are the kind of announcements we certainly want to see and see more of.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of the expansion of testing, one of the ways we can get there is with at-home testing. And so there's an announcement of even more companies that are offering this at-home testing ability.
Yeah, and I think for that critical test before leaving for the airport, the one that you're talking about, the in that 24, 48 hour zone, an at-home test where you can get a quick response is really going to be critical to making this whole process work. And as we come out as Travel Again with recommendations, and again, this will fit into that very nicely. But again, great to see companies and innovation coming in the places we need it.
Okay, Mike, so we have one more article this week, which is an interesting one where the cruise industry created a test. They went out and cruised. They didn't go anywhere. They were just testing their ability to do so. But there was a positive test of COVID. So tell us what this means for the cruise industry.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this in a really positive way. And what I mean is that Royal Caribbean from Singapore, did a cruise to nowhere. It was, well covered by the media. And when they were out and during the sailing, a passenger did end up not feeling well and was tested positive for COVID. But what that showed me is that you had, basically a really well thought through test and test design. The one passenger who kind of got through that whole process and still ended up being positive, it caught it, and they were able to isolate. They have all of the tracking devices on everyone that participated, so that they were able to find out who he became in contact with. And even though that ultimately, and I think in this environment, wisely so, ended up, coming back to port, it was, to me, a good step in the right direction of starting to understand where we need to go. And again, another critical industry, the cruise industry, that has to get sailing again. Now, of course, safely, responsibly, but it gives us a sense of where we need to go again. But I was actually really encouraged. I thought it was a really, again, from everything I read and saw, really responsibly done test. And I think a step in the right direction. And we're going to have a lot more trial and error and a lot more learnings. But this is, again, and years of work ahead. But again, I looked at this very positively.
So, I mean, thanks for taking that apart and providing insight, because I think a lot of people might have read that news and not understood it in context. And that's what this series is all about, kind of taking the news around what's happening and providing insights for our ability to travel again.
Right. And, go to the Travel Again website, Travel Again Project, right? And .org, and go to our news section. We do try to pull together the news that matters, because there's so much of it all the time. And I know that everyone's in their own way is trying to sift through, sort through it all, and work out, find out what matters most. And hopefully we can be a bit of help in doing that for everyone.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, audience. And we'll be back soon with more insights.
That's great. Thanks, Ed.